Hello friends, continuing from my previous lecture, I will show you how all these files are viewed. So first I will open the Excel file reader, which is a utility file. So I will first open the Sublime text. In the Sublime text, you can see the file name. So I will write the Excel file writer. What does this Excel file writer does? It just creates an Excel file. So for that you can see I will Excel file writer. In this Excel file writer, I will save this. So you can see this is the file writer, and now I will open the file reader. And this is the file reader. And this I will rename this. Okay, no need to rename this. So now these are the writing and writing. So first we'll see the reader. So in the reader there are functions which get the spreadsheet and perform the PHP operations on that. As you can see, there are four properties in Excel file reader. First is the spreadsheet, is from the workbook, then the active sheet, the sheet is active, and all the others. Now we will go to the validation of the you can say uh, the validation rules of the Excel DB. So now I will select this. Okay, I will select this folder. And in this folder there are the files. The first file is the most important is service provider. So in this folder of Excel DB, there is the Excel DB service provider. So what it does is it configures the service provider required for PHP Excel DB and it manages all the configuration. So this is a boot function. So whenever this service provider is uh, instantiated and the server container starts in the level, it the boot function is called. So whenever the boot function is called, it will publish its config to the exceldb.php file. So as you can see here, there is a config folder, and that is excel under exceldb.php. So here all the configuration is done, and since this configuration is done, it is done using the exceldb main business logic folder. In that source folder, there will be a uh, Excel DB service provider. It has in this current directory underscore dir underscore stands for the current directory. The current directory in that config directory in excel.php file will be equal to the config file of the excel.db.php file. So this in the config file comes from this from the this config folder you can say comes from this uh, Excel DB service provider. Now Excel DB service provider has to be registered. So it is registered in the app. In the app folder in the provides folder. It is uh, in- HTTP mode. Okay, we come to back accurate data varieties. That's not that important now. The important point is we have maybe I think it should be in the config folder. The config folder. Yeah, this is the whole configuration which was started when the Excel service XLDB service provider class starts running. So when this class was running, this all these functions were running and they give all the configuration for the XLDB. So you can just read it once. It's very difficult to explain me. So just remember that when this main business logic for packages slash ht sharp slash xldb is there, and there is a source folder is there, and there is a config for and there is a service provider. The service provider is the entry point. And everything starts with the service provider booting up. So when the XLDB service provider has boot up, it configures using the config directory of the uh, Laravel file system. So we completed one file, that is Excel XLDB file file service provider. This has the place where specifies where to take the configuration of the XLDB. So now we will go to the readers and writers. So readers and writers are simply you can say two operations which happen in Excel file. So suppose we want to read something from a file. So what are the constants we require? We require the spreadsheet, we require the active sheet, activity is the activity working sheet. Hello friends, continuing from my previous lecture, I will show you how all these files are used. So first I will open the Excel file reader, which is a utility file. So I will just open the Sublime text. In the Sublime Sublime text, you can see the file's name. So I will write the Excel file writer. What does this Excel file writer does? It just creates an Excel file. So for that you can see Excel file writer. In this Excel file writer, I will save this. So you can see this is the file writer, and now I will open the file reader. And this is the file reader. And this I will rename this. Okay, no need to rename this. So now these are the writing and writing. So first we'll see the reader. So in the reader there are functions we get the spreadsheet and perform the PHP operations on that. As you can see, there are four properties in Excel file reader. First is the spreadsheet, that is from the workbook, then the active sheet, waste sheet is active, and all the other. Now we will go to the validation of the uh, you can say uh, the validation rules of the Excel DB. So now I will select this. Okay, and select this folder. In this folder there are the files. The first file is the most important is service provider. So in this folder of Excel DB, there is the Excel DB service provider. So what it does is it configures uh, the service provider required for PHP Excel DB and manages all the configuration. So this is a boot function. So whenever this service provider is uh, instantiated and the server container starts in the level, it the boot function is called. So whenever the boot function is called, it will publish its config to the exceldb.php file. So as you can see here, there is a config folder, and that is excel under exceldb.php. So here all the configuration is done, and since this configuration is done, it is done using the exceldb main business logic folder. In that source folder, there will be a Excel DB service provider. It has in this current directory underscore dir underscore stands for the current directory. The current directory in that config directory in excel.php file will be equal to the config file of the excel.db.php file. So this uh, in the config file comes from the this config folder, you can say, comes from this uh, Excel DB service provider. Now Excel DB service provider has to be registered. So it is registered in the app. Provide in the app folder, in the provides folder. It is uh, in- HTTP mode. Okay, we come to back activate data where it is. That's not that important now. The important point is we have maybe I think it should be in the config folder. The config folder. Yeah, this is the whole configuration which was started when the Excel DB service provider class was running. So when this class was running, this all these functions were running, and they give all the configuration for the Excel DB. So you can just read it once. It's very difficult to explain me. So just remember that when this main business logic for packages slash ht sharp slash xldb is there, and there is a source folder is there, and there is a config for and there is a service provider. The service provider is the entry point, and everything starts with the service provider booting up. So when the xldb service provider has boot up, it configures using the uh, config directory of the uh, Laravel file system. So we completed one file, that is Excel XLDB file file service provider. This has the place. where specifies where to take the configuration of the XLDB. So now we will go to the readers and writers. So readers and writers are simply you can say two operations which happen in Excel file. So suppose we want to read something from a file. So what are the constants we require? We require the spreadsheet, we require the active sheet, activity the activity working sheet. Hello friends, now we will see one by one the remaining files. The first is the validator file. Validator is a built-in class in Java which validates forms based on rules. So it has all the rules that are modifiable. So first rule is you can see there is one. So this is yeah. So in this most important function is the validate function. The get invalid data. The get valid data. Get errors. And then invalid like that. Now let us see one by one each function. So this is a constructor function, public function underscore constructor. It takes array of data, that is data array of rules, the rules and boolean difference equal to false. So now in this object of validated, I will write two properties, that is the data and the rules. Validation, any validation refers to properties, that is data and rules, and differ is to differ the um, application until the validation rules are not satisfied. So by default it is false. It will not wait for the rules to be satisfied. It will tell the you can say application to not continue running and it will halt it. By default, if validation rule is not satisfied, the script will be stopped. If you want this to not happen, you have to type here default is equal to true. So now default value is given by equal to sign. So once again we revise the constructor of the validator. The constructor takes three arguments. The data is an array of values, and the rules which are the array of rules, whatever rules are there is required. Then read only, then maximum character 6. All these rules are available. And boolean differ. I already studied what is differ. So differ is that if the validation rules are not matched, it will stop the script execution. It will wait for that values to be compared. So inside the condition this here I will tell the dollar this which points to the instance which is created. It has three values, but we will consider only two, that is data and values. So data is the data and rules is the rules. So this dot validate function is just suppose if it is not default, so it is true. So this not validated function will be called. I will just close the constructor and I will open the validated class. So this is all happening in the constructor. So now if it is validated before, then return. So it will return it. So validator dot make, this is the main function which is very important. So validator dot makes sets the rules and sets the fields. So how it is work? Let us see. So this is my data is in the temp data, and since this is an array associated array, I will use the for each to for each this temp data as key associated with the value. Then we will make validator make, and then we will have the current value, current iteration, the current, you can say, row, and it has a rules. So if validator fails, validator fails returns true, and it will push in the array of invalid data, the row, and it will again push the errors to the validator, again push to the errors, the validator dot errors, and then it will unset the data. And now there are two functions, get valid data and invalid data. This just calls the validate function and returns the invalid data, and this returns the valid data. Again runs the validation, and this returns the valid data. So this is the errors. So again it returns the valid function, and if it errors, it will get the error message. This was about the validate. Very simple thing it is. Not that much difficult. The main one you have to remember is data, so not data, value, data and rules. So these two are main components. They are arrays. Then invalid data is used to store the data. Invalid data, valid errors are used to store the errors. All are arrays. So and one property is that it is validated before. So if is validated before is true, and is valid is then the is already validated. So here in the constructor, if you see it has three parameters, that is data, rules and differ. So what is data? Data is the whole row of you can say Excel sheet with endpoint. So suppose I have 10 cells in a row. What I will do is I will just uh, copy the 10 values of the 10 columns into a uh, array structure. So this is nothing but that only. This data is storing, you can say, this is refers to the current position, and dollar this in calling the data property, it is like data consists of the associative array, which stores the multi-dimensional array in data, and the rules in rules are an array of strings. So this has a validated function which uses the Laravel's validate method to pass or fail the rules. So for this it should not be different. It, it has to be you can say asynchronous. So now if this is the main function, valid function. So this is where all the this you can see here validate validate .php. Here if you see, I just end it. Now this is the validate function. It's called again line. So what it does is it gets the data. It's a multi-dimensional associative array. It passes through each row and for using for each loop. So for each data as a row index associated with row validator make. So this is the validator make this dot rows and the row. So for this row, this dot rules will be applied. So now if validator fails, this validation result is stored in the variable validator. So if validator fails, then we have to show the error message. So this is a basic validate function. So now if I want to get validate invalid data, so there is a function called validate. So what it will do is it will store in the object the invalid data. So this in this hyphen invalid data. Here this is again get valid data. This we calculate the validate function, and after this it will return the it will convert the this into a data property. So it will return this of data. And this was about the validator. We will come to back to it again. So now I'm moving my big bucket account. So now we have completed two classes. So one is a service provider. Now we will go to the Excel mapper. Let me copy this. This is the Excel mapper. Now in the Excel DB factory class, in the Excel in Excel DB factory class there are runtime methods. So now to see the constructor of the Excel DB factory, a minute. It has a model, it has user rules, and it has merge rules. So what is the meaning of model? Whenever you can say uh, have to create an instance of an Excel PHP Excel file, you have to specify the model for which you are doing, and you have to specify the rules and the merge rules. So model is the database representation in a class, nothing else in there. So how to represent database in a class is stored in model. So in that I have a function called as create. In that create, it will return new Excel DB factory. So this is the class. This self.get model table. From the table it is getting the model. It is get model class. You can see get model class will be there here. Yeah, get model class is taken from the config file and config model. So from this config uh, function, I will config a folder. In that I will pass the config file of Excel DB, and it will I will append to the DB tables at table model. So now to get the Excel DB object, there is a following function new Excel DB this dot model. So which model it is representing in the operation like insert, delete, functions, then user rules and merge rules. So now we go one by one. Insert. This dot get Excel object. This will get the Excel object and Excel operations enum. So this is enum. So this is OP insert. So it will insert it into the Excel DB object. So now the delete function. In this delete function, it is the same, but it just this is OP underscore insert is replaced by OP underscore delete, or also OP underscore update. So now how to get the template? It uh, is a major issue, but and now what happens is I will have an Excel file writer, but before that you can see, yeah, this XLDB file which was initiated by the XLDB factory file has a static method that is get or table. You can see the definition. It has get or tables and get or tables with operations. It returns the same. And this was about the getting of the table names and rules and templates. Here one function has been insert function has been uh, implemented here. You can see that this underscore underscore dir underscore points to the current directory, and in current directory that is this directory, and in this config folder, that inside that config folder there is a excelvb.php file. So here all the configuration is stored. So where to store the excel files after download, so which table to use, what is the model, what is the insert, delete and update operations. So all this config you can do in this file. So currently we are not doing any formatting. So I will just go to the Excel service provider again. So this dot publishes. So whenever the Laravel service container is booted up, the Excel DB service provider, this our you can say our Excel configuration is published to the config path exceldb.php. So in the config folder of Laravel, our configuration will be transmitted. At the moment the Laravel service container creates an instance of XLDB service provider in the memory, and there is one more method that is register, but it is empty. So that was about the service provider. After service provider, we saw the Excel validator. No need to again see it. Then the XLDB factory. So what this does is it creates a singleton instance of the XLDB object. So here this is a constructor. So it has a model, it has a rules, and it has merge rules. So we will understand each one by one. So suppose uh, I am making a DB factory, a database factory for a model. Because a model is mapped to a Excel DB. So one model, suppose that it gives a model. So suppose there will be country model. Whatever model is there is mapped to the Excel file. So so whenever we create an instance of this Excel DB factory, it will call the constructor function underscore construct. It will take a model. It will take the rules, like what are the validation rules and merge rules. So after that, to create the instance of Excel DB factory, we have public static function create. So this takes it on down table, user rules and merge rules. So it will this will create the instance of the Excel DB factory, which will in turn create an instance of Excel DB object. So this was about the Excel. Get Excel DB object for operation. So what it will do is it will return new Excel DB this dot model and the operation, that is insert, then or update or delete, and the rules. So the first function we will consider here is insert. So, so in the insert function, it gets the DB object first and it performs the insert function on the file path. So now we will go to delete. It gets an Excel DB object and performs a delete operation. So in update, it again gets the Excel DB object and with the enum or op underscore update and updates the file path. So you may have noticed one thing is every method is changed. So if you see dollar this is getting a Excel object and again this is returning that object and then it is calling the insert function. So every function is returning this object. Like this get Excel DB object has a return statement and that return statement will return dollar this. So it will return the object which is modified and it will return this to this object and then this object again will call the insert function. This will again create a copy of the change modification and it will return the modified copy. So I can have 10 number of function calls in one line because of method chaining. So for delete we have studied for update. Yeah. So now what is a template? Template is a way to store similar looking code or same code at once and replicating it to other places. So suppose I have a header which is used in many Excel files. I will just use the header template and then attach that template to all the files. So here you can see here there is a get template method. Excel file writer has a get file path. So Excel file has a get file path and the path will have a template. So now this was about the Excel DB factory. Now we are completed Excel DB factory service provider and then we will see the enum. So enum is insert, delete, update. All have to be defined as constants. That is important. And the static function is reflection class and get called class. So this class function is there. Get class function is there. So it is a private function. So it is not available outside the function. So cell dot get class get constants. So what it does it gets the class of cell in the reflection class method and after getting the class it gets the constants. The constants are nothing but the operations, that is insert, delete and update. So well guys, once again this Excel operations in has a private method that is get class and using a reflection class it finds out the which constant is uh, getting called for which class. So that is Excel operations in. So after that the validator we already seen. The mapper is can say is for a spreadsheet constructor. So now